Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. Ann Harder here. What a joy it is to welcome JD Hinton to the podcast. Dave Hinton, I've known him for many, many years from our days at WACO.
Right.
Well, in fact, we never worked at WACO together.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. No, a lot of the same people have just been friends for a long time. You left in the old days, went to California.
I did.
To make your mark as a Hollywood actor and now musician, singer, songwriter. And we've got a lot to talk about. So buckle up and get ready. Dave, it's just so good to have you back in Central Texas. First of all, let's say you are back in Central Texas because your sweet daddy has just turned 102.
My dad turned 102 on the 22nd of February. Pretty amazing.
It is extremely amazing.
Yeah.
His life has kind of taken you full circle in a way.
Really?
Too, as a pastor. He was at one time pastor at First Baptist Woodway.
First Baptist Woodway from like 1960 through the end of 68. I think maybe 1969 they moved down to Temple.
Yeah. In fact, I saw a little clip from I guess the news, maybe the church newsletter. I don't know, where you were described as singing in a
Christmas
cantata, as we used to call them.
Yeah.
And you think that maybe that was your first performance?
I think that's the first time I sang in public like that. It's not like you don't sing in church occasionally in Sunday school or something. But no, that was the first time they went, okay, and you'll be in this trio and you have a little solo right here. And I thought, okay. Let's go.
Let's do it. Well, so fast forward a little bit. You go to Baylor.
Yep.
And you study. What did you study at Baylor?
You know, at Baylor, I started out as a radio TV major and a journalism major. And I figured out in the first semester I did not need to be a journalism major. I had no talent. And in the first year, I'd been working at WACO for a couple of years already. So I thought, this is probably not a good degree for me. And so I chose to study marketing, and I went to Hankemer School of Business.
That's right. I think, didn't you have a class with my dad?
Your dad taught me 2 classes.
Really? Charles Wells taught economics.
And for some odd reason, he liked me. So that was a good class for me.
Well, he loved his students.
Yeah, he was a great teacher. And one of my highlights of that school experience is your dad. So.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Sweet days at Baylor. But then you decided to make your mark in California. Is that how that happened?
Toward the end of my Baylor years, I'd met a fellow who was in a band. I'd met a fellow at Baylor who left Baylor his sophomore year and went and joined a band, and he was out on the West Coast, and he called up. And I was still working at the radio station. I'd go to Baylor in the morning and do the radio station.
I did the same thing, yeah.
And he called up and said, "There's a radio station in Sacramento that cannot find the guy they're looking for. Send them a tape." And I'd never sent anybody a tape. I'd never tried to get another job because I was going to Baylor.
Yeah.
And sent off the tape, and they hired me. And so like 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Sacramento.
And from there, I mean, you met a lot of people. Anita Garner, who I've had on this
right.
podcast, but wonderful
She's a
writer and great
writer,
story
and
she
has a broadcasting background as well, and she worked at that radio station after I left there. So
kind of like me.
yeah, exactly. But but at the radio station, in addition to having a disc jockey show where you play the records for the 3 or 4 hours you were on the air, I was the music director at that radio station. So I got all the mail from all the record companies and all the phone calls and all the lunches where people were saying, we've got something that we want you to hear. It's brand new.
I want you to play it.
So I met guys in the record business, and after a couple of years in Sacramento, I thought it's time for me to move to L.A., and that's how I got to L.A. from Waco through Sacramento and through the record business.
Yeah, got your feet wet and made a lot of great contacts, I'm sure. So you're in Hollywood now. Still doing radio, is that right?
Not anymore, but you mean when I first got there. When I first arrived, I'd planned to not do radio anymore, but after I got there and was there about 6 months, people were saying, you might get a job. And so I started, I ended up and I took a job on an R&B radio station, and I worked midnight to 5 for 5 years.
Wow.
The first 5 years I was there, but it was great.
Overnights for that long.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was interesting for me, but it gave me it gave me time to develop all the contacts and to go to the acting classes and to get better and to get a resume as an actor, and so it worked out really. It was an important time in my life to have that job, and it was also a job I could really do based on my history in radio. So, so the first 5 years I was in town, I was midnight to 5.
So when did the acting bug hit you?
Land.
When did you decide you wanted to, pursue acting?
My plan when I first arrived in L.A., because of my background with radio and my love of music, was to come in and write songs. And I had 4 or 5 people in the record business that I knew, and they would say, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to write songs, and then I'm going to sing songs, and then I'm going to act, because that would help make all that bigger." And somebody, Rick Nelson was one of the people that I knew, and he sent me he just turned all that around. And I got a meeting with a Paramount Studios casting director who was meeting me because she had been asked to meet me. But in that meeting, she said, "Here's somebody that likes to work with young people." And I called that turned out to be a fellow, and he had an agency, and he said, "I'll represent you." And so within 2 weeks of being in Los Angeles, I had an agent, and that was pretty great.
That's amazing.
I just didn't know how you would ever do that work, but suddenly 2 weeks there, I've got a guy who's saying, "I'll represent you," and I said, "That's cool." And it takes longer than that 2 weeks to make stuff kind of go on, but that at least got me started. So that's kind of the answer to your question, is that started that. And the first audition I got took about 9 months to get that first audition. But in that first audition, I got the part. It was a part in a TV show called Policewoman. And I
Angie Dickinson.
With Angie Dickinson. And so I went and auditioned, and I got it. And that's when I decided this might actually work out if I applied myself. So that's where it started.
That's fabulous. So that's the first thing you did. I know you had told me you also were on the second episode of Mork and Mindy?
Yeah. A few years later, with every 6 month period, more stuff happened and more auditions.
Yeah,
and
people
more
start calling
things start going on. So in anything with 19 in front of it now tells you that it's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
But Mork and Mindy had just been gone into production. It was the first season. They hadn't gone on the air yet. And I got an audition, and it was at Paramount Studios again. And I got the role playing Mindy's boyfriend.
Oh.
And I'd been in comedy class a little bit. And in the comedy classes, Robin Williams was always in those classes.
Yeah.
He wasn't in my class. He would just come to every class. And I had decided after watching him work 2 or 3 times, I needed to be a dramatic actor.
Was he intimidating in his mania? I mean,
everything that we've all loved about Robin along the way was evident every time he got up to do an exercise in acting class. And he'd do it, and you'd go, "God, he's so good." And nobody knew who he was at the time.
Yeah.
So when I got the Mork and Mindy show, when I got that episode, I knew what to expect, but they have an audience for the taping. And the show hadn't been on the air yet, and I thought, I don't know if the audience is going to get him or not. But they got him immediately.
Right away, yeah.
It was great.
Beloved. Yeah, he was beloved for sure. Lots of other shows, though, back in those days.
Yeah.
Mary Hartman. That's one that's a definite blast from the past.
It's funny how things turn out, and especially over time, how things endure. Because the name Mary Hartman, for a lot of people does endure. It's a Norman Lear show.
Yeah.
And Norman Lear has he's going to be one of the faces on the Mount Rushmore of Hollywood TV.
That's true.
Anyway, so it was great to work with him, and it was a great chance to be on a show that was groundbreaking at the time.
It was different.
It's very different, and which meant there were no rules, which saved me a lot, because I thought, even if I'm bad, they won't know, because everything works on this show. That's right. So
That's funny.
it was great.
Yeah, let's see some of the other. Galaxina. I don't think I remember that one.
Galaxina was a movie that came out in I think it came out in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bittersweet memory for me, because it was a lovely experience to do, and you become friends with everybody that you work with. So the whole cast obviously got close, and the female star of that was a lady named Dorothy Stratton, and and she was murdered later that year by.
Oh, it was that year.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that long
I
ago.
know.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, but. Well, kind of when we were doing it, it was also trying to make fun of Star Wars and all the space movies.
It was a little bit of a spoof.
It was a total spoof, and I thought, if it's going to work, it'll work as a cult movie with spoof, and it'll be fun. And then, the sad events happened around Dorothy, and so that just thoroughly threw everything kind of away. But it is a cult movie, and people are still finding it, but more because the connection based on her.
Yeah, based on her. So you did, what, did you do more television than you did movie acting?
I think, I never did a lot of movies. I did a lot more television.
Did you like one better than the other?
I think...
just worked out that way?
I think that the way that it works, or at least what works for me, is you have to have people representing you. And sometimes their strength is in one area, and more so in this area than in this area. And the people that represented me were always really good with television shows, and not so much in the film industry. And certainly in the commercial industry, I had a great series of...
You did a lot of commercials.
Tremendous commercial agents. And so, that was... But that's to your point. It depends on who's with you as to kind of what your opportunities are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Any particular favorite projects you worked on? Of any of it, really?
The things that were favorites to me, obviously Mork and Mindy would always be a favorite because of Robin, and it was a fun thing at the time. I did a TV movie called The Young Indiana Jones. There was a TV series for a minute called The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
I remember, yeah.
And when ABC or whatever the network decided they wanted to cancel it, George Lucas still had, 2 or 3 of those scripts around, and he wanted to make TV movies out of them, so he did. And I got to be in one of those, and man, was that great fun.
Yeah, what role did you play? What were you?
I played, the scenario was that young Indy, which means, like a 22-year-old version of the Harrison Ford character that we'd come to know. Young Indy goes to Hollywood in that era, and for some sort of reason, but gets involved with John Ford making a movie. So the director, John Ford, Universal Studios, there's a bunch of, so it's all, I think the the title of the piece is The Hollywood Follies. So you can go to the Hollywood Follies, Young Indiana Jones on your search engines and see what this is. But so Young Indy shows up, and John Ford and Harry Carey, who I played Harry Carey,
Oh, okay.
are going to go out
Very
to the
good.
desert and shoot a Western. And so for a guy from Waco, Texas, in Hollywood, to get to go play cowboys was great fun.
I'll bet.
It was really terrific. So, you know,
Ride horses too? Or
well, yes, that was one of the questions in the.
do you ride?
Yes, well, and that's also so in auditions, especially because I grew up in Texas, I'd get a lot of Texas kind of characters, and they would ask questions like, "Do you ride a horse? Do you ride horses?" And I always thought that was a trick question, because I've never had a horse, but I've ridden horses all my life because friends had them and you get on them. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what that meant. But I learned to say, so in that audition for that role, the casting director said, "And do you ride horses?" And I said, "They don't let you west of El Paso unless you can ride a horse." That's my standard answer. I have no idea what they're really asking, but it makes them happy to know that I'm really confident around horses. So in the actual production, there's a scene where it's a movie within a movie, and I have to kiss the girl, get on the horse, and ride into the sunset.
Really? No kidding.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Gotta look this up.
And so where we were at the time, it was the middle of the day, and I went to one of the production people and I said, "Well, if we're going to do this, it's going to be we got to wait 5 or 6 hours for it to be sunset."
Sunset, yeah.
And they said, "Oh no." And they pointed off in the distance, and there was a little range of mountains that had a little dip in it, and they said, "If you'll ride into the center of that dip, George Lucas will build you a sunset."
We'll take care of that, yeah.
And I went, "Oh, I never
the
thought
magic
of that."
of movies.
So that was great. So anyway, it was, so you get on the horse and you ride.
Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, we could talk on and on and on about your acting career. The most recent thing you've done, you mentioned Reese Witherspoon.
I did something. The morning show is kind of a new thing that's out, and I worked with Reese on the first episode of that, where they were establishing all of their characters to get their thing off the ground. And some friends from here just recently tuned it in, and so I got emails going, "I just saw you in." And I'm going, "Yeah, I know. I'm in it this long, but I am in it."
Well, that's great. What you're doing though now is really your passion, and that's music.
Right.
And you say you weren't any good at journalism, but you were an amazing writer. You're a poet. I mean, you really reach deep and convey with words. So yeah, you're a journalist.
I discovered that.
Yeah.
I did not know that at the beginning, and whatever the disciplines were of journalism when I was an 18-year-old kid went over my head. But if I were to go back today and apply to be a journalism major, I'd bring a lot more to the party than I had at the time. But it took me a while to understand that I write, and that I actually write all the time. Like we're sitting here talking, and I'm making notes in the back of my head for 3 more things I'm going to write when we finish here. You know, so, but it took living life to discover that, and so yeah.
Hi, this is Sarah.
And I'm Carter.
And this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're 2 Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and vinyl. So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
Hey y'all, I'm April,
Hi, I'm Caroline.
and we have a new podcast for you. What's it called, Caroline?
Bloody Happy Hour.
It's going to be your new favorite guilty pleasure. We're going to talk about some bloody stuff. Serial killers, true crime,
Rape.
rapists. Why not join us? We'll have a good time.
You literally never know. I don't know what I'm going to say. Bloody Happy Hour. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Yeah, so the music part, did you, as a little kid, take piano? I mean, or guitar? What is your kind of instrument
I had
background?
piano lessons since the first grade for about 8 years, so really early in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a teacher here in Waco that taught a lot of theory with her classes, Mrs. J.W. Osley.
I was going to say Ms. Osley, yeah.
And she was tremendous, and she would, it would make her laugh to know that I really did come away with a lot, because I think I was her worst student ever. But I learned a lot of theory and stuff from her. And so I learned things on piano. When I went to Baylor, I had a roommate who had a guitar, and I decided I would pick up the guitar and try to figure out how to make that work. Mm-hmm. And learning both instruments taught me how to write songs. I did not, the piano for me was too literal. It was too much of where the notes were on the page and how you performed those notes. The guitar was all chords, and it was just chord relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you can put your melody anywhere in between.
Yeah, once you, again, that's what people always talk about, especially like country music. It's 3 chords and the truth.
Right, right.
Or 4 chords and the truth. And so once you learn 2 or 3 chords and you can kind of make that work, your melodies start fitting over that. Mm-hmm. And then with the theory stuff that I had behind me, it was easy to just adapt all that. So guitar opened up my musicality, and the theory that I got from piano helped underpin that. So,
yeah, I like hearing you talk about your process. I'm always fascinated with people who are creatives and how they have an idea,
right,
and then it becomes something fully produced in a studio. It's not automatic.
It's not. And fortunately for me, there's no wrong answers.
Yeah.
So if you do something and you don't like it, you can go back to where you started that, and you can move that aside and go somewhere else. It feels a lot to me like it's a little bit like improv as an actor. But like the game where we mirror each other's hands and we move. Well, you don't know where it's going to move next, but you follow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my creative instincts are a little bit like that. So, or it may be like the game where I say cat and you say
mouse, yeah,
and we move on from there. So I'll get a note, or I'll get a melody, or I'll get a word, and it just layers together. Mm-hmm. And somebody like Leonard Cohen, who's a great writer, can write 50 verses of the song Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah, and there are that many verses.
And when I figured out that guys that wrote like that wrote a lot more than they needed, it taught me, don't stop when you've got 3 verses. Write 10 verses and pick the stuff that you like.
The ones you like, yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's an interesting thing. Anyway, but the creativity keeps, if it flows at all, then there's always a way that you look at it and you go, oh, that would, what if we move that over here? And away you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of the things that have been written about you, you were described as one of the last great romantics by Fayette Hauser. Writing his voice is low and rumbly, each song a small poem, a vignette of love lost and found, regrets and humor. It was great, was the comment.
I'm honored that anybody pays enough attention to write anything along, especially along those lines. When Fayette said, "You're the last of the great romantics," she had seen a couple of shows, and I went and talked to her, and I said, "But this song and this song are kind of edgy songs," and she looked at me like, "Yeah." Threaded through that is kind of who you are.
Sure.
And there's a
well, that's in all of your music, I think.
And you don't know that, it's not a conscious thing. You're just kind of moving along and you're doing stuff, and so you write something, and when you finish, you go, oh, I know when I'd make let's say a poetic turn that becomes really sensitive, and I'm going, okay, I can see the romance in this, but if I'm really trying to be ornery and stuff like this, I'm going, but she's up, no, your songs are romantic songs. And I was like, okay.
So you have favorite musicians you like to work with in studio? Or you just kind of pull people together
it depends. It depends on the year and the project. Sometimes people are not available when the next time that you want to do something. And typically over my time in Los Angeles doing music, yes, I found people I like to work with. And then when you get into the studio with other people who are also making decisions, like I'm working with a new producer by the name of Justin Glasgow over the last couple of years.
Glasgow?
Yeah.
How interesting is that?
Very similar, yes, I know. I know.
Kind of inside.
I know. Very inside, but we're having a really good time with this.
We're having a good time.
We know. You can see this on the bibliography when this all goes down. So Justin will get to a place and he'll say, okay, we need to add guitars to this. Who do you know? Because he wants to know who I know. And I know some really great guitar players. So I'm about to go, well, but Justin is, he's younger than I am. So he knows a whole different strata of people than I know just based on his age. And I met people at this time in Hollywood, and he's met all these people since, et cetera. Yeah. And so I'll go, well, who do you know? And he says, well, I can think of 3 guys that might work for this song. And I said, bring in whoever you want to bring in.
Yeah.
And so typically he will defer to me if I want somebody. And then once we worked with somebody that worked out really well, he'll remember the next time we get into that question. You like this guy. Let's bring in him again. I'm going, great.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about some of your songs specifically. One that really, in fact, it was the first one I saw of your music videos. And that's, I guess, a whole nother layer when you're doing the visual of it, and it's Mulholland Drive.
Wow.
It really moved me. I was surprised, too. I mean, I'm watching it, listening, and this is good. And then at the end, I'm like, I'm crying. I really, literally was crying.
Well, that makes
that surprised me, but it was great.
Well, that means a lot to me. It was
great, and it felt like I had taken a trip to L.A. to Mulholland Drive.
You just made my day, so I can sit here for the next 10 minutes and just kind of soak that in. The first time I moved, before I moved to Los Angeles, when I was still living in Sacramento and investigating it, there was a record producer that I'd met, and he said, if you come down to L.A., let me know. And so I made a plan to go down to L.A., and he said, hey, I'm working in this studio, and I went to where he was working in a studio. And when we finished, he said, you want to go over to the house? My wife's making dinner. You want to go to the... And I said, sure. He grew up in Fort Worth. And so he led me, I followed him down Mulholland Drive for the first time. And I fell in love with I don't know if people who've not been out there, but the hillside where the Hollywood sign is that people are familiar with, that hillside just stretches several more miles west into the Pacific. And along the ridge of that, I'm doing this because the road winds along the ridge of that. So at one moment you can look over on this side and you can see Hollywood and Los Angeles. And when you look over on this side, you see the San Fernando Valley with this curtain of glittering lights at night. It's just fabulous. So I just fell in love with Mulholland Drive. And I had a lunch date. I had a day one day, and I was having lunch on Sunset Boulevard, and I decided to challenge myself because songwriters can write anywhere. So I finished lunch, and I thought, let me see if I can write. Restaurant wasn't crowded. I wasn't taking up more space. And outside the window, front is kind of a sidewalk restaurant, the Hollywood Hills sprang up. Mm-hmm. So I just started that song. And I wrote the entire lyric sitting at that table, and then a bunch of other things had gone on, and I had to just put that in a drawer. Oh. And I left it in a drawer for 4 or 5 years before, in Temple, Texas, I had a songwriting studio. I remembered it, put it in front of the piano, wrote the music. And so it took several years to show up, but the fact that it meant something to you.
Oh, yeah.
Is important to me because the day that you write it, you think, I think this is good, but I'm the only person who thinks that because I'm the only one who knows about it. So it means a lot to hear that it reached you.
Oh, let's see. Treat You Right. That's a good song, too. I really like the sentiment behind it because someone maybe has not been treated right, and you want to be the one to do that. And that's life.
I'd love to treat you right if love has done you wrong.
Right.
That's the opening line, I think.
Yeah.
My grandmother, my family has piano players throughout the family. And my grandmother had a piano that I remember playing on as a kid, but also watching her play things like Mr. Sandman and some of the songs from her youth. That ended up in my dad's house. And it's part of the way that I write. I don't plan to write. I just sit at the piano and I started playing stuff on that piano, and it had a sound when I played those 2 or 3 intervals that became the song. And I just followed them down. So the second it started, I thought it was falling out of me. It was coming out pretty easily. And I thought, I don't know how good this is because it's flowing as opposed to I'm having to work at it. So, but I appreciate that you like it. I used a fellow on that song. If you listen to it, if you search for it on any of the places where people listen to music on the internet, who did harmonica on it, and he's in Denmark.
Really?
But I met him when we sang together on a project when we sang at the Vatican for the Pope on Christmas Day, 99.
That's pretty exciting.
So Talek is the fellow's name, and so I called Talek and I said, we got this song, can you record your part and we'll put it back into the song through the magic of, the way it works. Yeah,
I don't want to gloss over that. Here we have a kid from Waco singing before the Pope.
Yeah. I did an episode. I became friends with an A-list singer in town, and by A-list I mean on the Michael Jackson tour that did not go out because Michael died. All 4 of the backup singers are people that are friends of mine because you work around it. But one of the guys and I became really good friends along the way, and so we've traded off on projects. His name is Daryl Finnessy, and the other reason people might know him is he wrote the words for the Frasier theme song, The Tossed Salad and Scrambled Eggs.
No kidding.
So Daryl and I became friends. And so Daryl calls up one day in like October of 99, and he said, hey, how would you like to go to the Vatican and sing for the Pope on Christmas Day? And sure. Of course, the answer is, yeah. So we ended up there's about 40 singers from the United States, and we sang 4 or 5 choral kind of pieces with a 100-piece orchestra.
Oh, neat.
It was well, it was thoroughly fascinating.
Your first Woodway days back again.
Yes, I was having a First Baptist Woodway cantata.
Little
at the
flashback. Oh gosh, so many songs, and we're running. I don't know. We run out of time, but we could just go on and on and on. Another really poignant song, and it harkens back to what we were talking about earlier. I didn't know you were going.
Yeah, I didn't know you were going. I'd rather keep that the real stuff about that personal. I'd rather keep that private. But there are moments all the time that happen where I've learned over time to stay as current as you can with people, because you never know when it's the last time that you'll see them.
Oh, it's profound, yeah.
And if you learn that lesson, you really learn that lesson. So there was a moment where I did not know it was going to be the last time I saw somebody, but fortunately we ended up on a really terrific moment. Mm-hmm. And when they were really gone, I was stunned, and I had to respond to it. So I wrote a song called "I Didn't Know You Were Going."
Yeah, it's it has to be therapeutic in a way to be able to write and to.
It is a little bit, I think.
Mm-hmm.
At least you can give voice to. I think in the sense that we all would like to be heard,
mm-hmm.
or heard more clearly.
Yeah.
At least there's an illusion of being heard if you can say it or put it into a sentence or into a word where you go, you need to know, and maybe you don't need to know. And Texans are fond of pointing at people when they're really after them.
Robert Weathers.
Yeah. You need to know that I remember you when I'm not around.
Yeah.
And you'll go, really? And you go, yeah. So from that moment on, I know that you understand that our friendship has value. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to always meet up every week or every day, but even when it doesn't meet up, it continues to have value, so that if I don't see you again, I will always have the peace of knowing that you knew how valuable you are to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so important. We've gotten into some really
I know you probably
deep thoughts.
I know
deep thoughts. So let's get even deeper. Okay, I do like you. You know this. I like to end these little visits with a questionnaire similar to the one the late great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actor's Studio. And so here's my take on it. What is your favorite word?
I like that James Lipton moment. And when I heard him ask that question, what's your favorite word? I thought grace is my favorite word.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a song called Grace is My Favorite Word as a result of that. That's a short answer and a long answer.
And that's another good song.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just listening to
so
it.
Grace is my favorite word.
Amazon, I just said, play some JD Hinton music, and that was the first one that popped up.
Great.
First one that popped up. Your least favorite word, then?
It's 2 words. It's one thought, but it's 2 words.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. I'll hate the finality.
Yeah.
That there's no other movement after over. So when somebody goes, it's over, you go, oh, it's over.
No.
So that's my least favorite.
What turns you on creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
I started to say music certainly does. Mm-hmm. On the way here, I stopped and got a little coffee at a place, and I walked in and they were playing, I don't remember which song it was, but it was a Led Zeppelin song. And it, the middle of the day in a Waco, Texas coffee shop to hear Led Zeppelin, I was like, whoa.
Took you back, right?
Oh, well, it also takes me forward. I hear all the stuff that they're doing, and it makes me think of all the other things I can do.
Yeah.
So music is a pretty strong thing. Color is sometimes will grab you as well.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Blue's your favorite color, I think.
Blue is my favorite color.
I had a line from a song. What turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
Ignorance.
Yeah. Because you don't have to stay that way.
No, you can. you just don't. If you don't know something, you can still learn. But and maybe willful ignorance is probably a better answer to that.
Okay, yeah. What sound do you love the most? Besides Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. I think this. I think for me, I've thought of this before, but I think silence is a sound.
I've heard that before from people.
And so for me, everything springs out of the silence. And so if you're in silence, I feel like there's more to come.
Okay. What sound do you hate?
Car crashes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What other profession did you want to try?
Well, I'm really kind of at a tremendous loss of that. I've jokingly said golf.
Oh, a pro golfer, huh?
Huh?
You like to play a lot of golf?
Yeah, I'm a bad golfer. I'm so average. I'm bad. My game is pars and eights. But I like the game, and there are things about creativity that I think I discover all the time in how you play golf. Mm-hmm. So that'd be a cool thing. And maybe beyond that, in recent years, because of sitting around with television and cable, being a chef might be fun.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Yeah, they do make it look fun. What job do you know you would not want to do?
Accountant.
Yeah. I've heard that before, too.
Well, but the people who are good at it, it's not work to them. They can see it. It's in Technicolor. They love the puzzle that it involves.
Right, exactly. That's what I've heard recently. That joy of accomplishment, that put it all together and everything zeroes out. I'm like, no.
It's a mystery to me, and so it's not fun for me to do.
There you go.
So I'm not trying to badmouth people who chose accounting.
Oh no, we need them. I love the fact they're out there.
That'd be bad for me.
Yeah. Finally, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome to the 8th day. And I do love Robin Williams' answer to that, by the way.
I know we had talked about this some time ago, that I saw him on Inside the Actor Studio, and his response was, "You here
so soon?
So soon?"
And he has that little impish little, and I'm going, yeah, that's Robin. Yeah. That's pure Robin, actually.
Yeah. But, well, folks can find your music where? Tell them where.
If you look anywhere on the internet that you get music, streaming, downloading, it's all JD Hinton. Music. There's also a jdhintonmusic.com that can tell you how to find all this stuff. So that's how you can do it.
And you're active on social media as well.
Thoroughly active on social media. So you can follow on Facebook, Instagram. Please, if you go to YouTube and search for me or my songs, hit subscribe. That helps me a ton. Follows, likes in the internet world is tremendous.
Yeah, when you're here in Texas, when are you going to do a show here?
Oh, well, I don't know the answer to that. I'm planning to do a show in Los Angeles for the first time in a couple of years in April, so maybe before the end of summer.
That'd be great.
We can be here in Waco or somewhere in Texas.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, JD Hinton, Dave Hinton, my sweet friend. Yeah, thanks for being with us, and thank you for being with us. Join us again. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.